So many people who chase fame for the sake of fame, it's a prison. I know that because that's what Canadian fame is.
Today on Chatter That Matters, I interview Ben Mulroney for a conversation that goes well beyond the headlines in his last name. In fact, I titled the episode, Not in My Father's Footsteps.
The job had to directly tie to what I was studying. I was studying history and political science because I'm a Mulroney.
Ben has blazed his own trail for decades. From hosting morning television, to meeting with celebrities on red carpets, from interviews with the world's biggest stars.
Fame doesn't change you. It only highlights that which is already there. So if you're a nice person, it'll supercharge that. If you're an asshole, it'll make you the worst on the block.
To navigating the pressures and expectations that come with legacy, visibility, and reinvention. I've had the honor of being on his radio show for the past year, and my admiration for this young man truly holds no boundaries. He takes on the most complex and sometimes controversial subject matter. He synthesizes. What he brings to his listeners is a clear, courageous, and confident point of view.
We go places other people don't, but they're respectful. I wouldn't invite you into my house to then punch you in the face.
And we taped his show live in front of an audience, the Toronto Hunt. And we talk about identity, resilience, fatherhood, and what it means to find your own voice. There's so much noise that surrounds you.
They love building you up and they love tearing you down, and you can be resurrected, but first you have to show contrition.
We even talk about Ben and his love for small business.
If you don't have the mom and pop shops, then you have a residential neighborhood where everyone just stays in their house. Like you don't build social cohesion, you don't build identity. People who bet on themselves, who say, I have an idea, nobody else is doing it, I've identified a problem and I am the solution.
Let's now go live to the Toronto Hunt, and you'll hear why Ben Mulroney has chosen a path not in his father's footsteps.
Ben, come on up.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated.
That was the best intro I've ever received. I was just I was up in Regina, Saskatoon, for the biannual convention of the governing Saskatchewan party. And Scott Moe, the premier, asked me if I would go and give the keynote address. I thought my dad would get such a kick out of that.
Do you feel that he's still with you? Do you feel that sort of spiritual connection that you go?
Oh, yeah. So when he resigned from politics, he got on a bunch of boards. And one of them was Barrick Gold. He calls me up. I'm in my first year of university. Do you have any plans for the summer? At that point, I was a young freshman. I was 17. Like, I have no plans. I was going to sit by your pool. And he said, well, you want to work for a gold mine? I was like, yes. He said, all right, I'm going to put someone in touch with you and you should bring your friend. So my best friend from high school, with the two of us. But in order to get the work permit for the visa, the job had to directly tie to what I was studying. I was studying history and political science because I'm a Mulroney. So I had to change my major to geology. Then we get there, everything's great. We're living in Elko, Nevada. They think I'm a geology major because I put it on my visa. And I show up the first week, we're doing some stuff in archaeology because you got to dig for archaeological finds before you can dig for anything. Then they put me in dewatering. Now, dewatering, if you dig a big pit, there's all sorts of underwater aquifers that you are interrupting and they will just spill into the pit. So you got to pump them somewhere else or redirect them somewhere else. And once you do that, you're creating a whole new ecology and you have to study it. So they put me in a room with maps of aquifers and of geological surveys and all this stuff. And I sat there. They did not tell me what to do. They just assumed that because I was a geologist, I would divine it from the context. So I sat in this room with no windows for 5 days. Couldn't read these maps, so I brought a book. And then when I was done, I'd get on the bus and I'd go home. And I did that for 5 days. And at the end of the 5 days, they said, so what have you done? And I said, I haven't done anything. Why not? It's like, I have no idea what any of this is. So they did the most responsible thing you do with somebody when you realize they know nothing about anything to do with mining. They put me in the explosives department. And we blew stuff up for the rest of the summer. Yeah. I made a lot of money and I bought a car. It was a new Ford Mustang. You know when they redid the Ford Mustang? And it was red and it had no power windows. It had no air conditioning. It had a tape deck, but it was mine. And I peel around the corner and I come back to the house and my dad looks at me and he says, what the hell are you doing? showing off my car to you. He said, get your arm out of the window. I was like, it's hot. It's summer and I don't have air conditioning. He says, most accidents happen when people are too comfortable behind the wheel. He said, I don't think that's a fact, Dad. Listen, wherever you go in life, you look in that rearview mirror and I'm right there.
So I'm curious, let's talk about your dad, because I mentioned the fact that obviously he has this global voice. What was it like growing up with, your dad being such a public figure and just absolutely somebody that was loved not only in Canada, but probably the finest we've ever had relationships with the States around the world. What was it like sharing that? Were you mad? Were you?
No, not at all. We never felt, we knew that our parents went all over the world. I was asked by the Globe and Mail when Justin Trudeau became prime minister if I would write something for them about, from one son of a prime minister to another. They said it was to him, but it was for everybody else. And what I said was, I knew my dad wasn't always present, but I always felt his presence. Like we couldn't get away with anything. We always felt like he was investing, knew what was going on. And so when I remember, he's in all the memories. Same with my mother. I don't remember them not being there.
And your mom. I'm interested in both dynamics because I find very often that you might favor one over the other. You might learn more from one over the other, but you are.
Well, we spent more time with my mom.
Yeah.
Dad was the closer. He was the one who would come in and level set with us. Mom was the micromanager, and she was not quiet. When we get in trouble, if we came home with bad grades, she would talk to us. And it was these talks about how disappointed she was. And we did not like them. At one point, we actually kind of got together. It's like, if we asked her, like, can we avoid these? Could you just hit us? I'd be better. And that never did work out. So my mom saw my grades one year and she was not happy. And she said, until further notice, you can't go to another party. And I kept getting these grades back and I knew the numbers weren't going up. So I didn't bother asking about going to a party. And I would tell her when I get invited to a birthday party, I can't come. My grades aren't up. 3 years go by. And then I finally give a report card to my mom. I gave her, she said, well, this is fantastic. And I almost started crying. She said, well, why are you crying? I was like, because I can finally go to a party. She bursts out laughing. She's like, you took me seriously? And then then she told my dad, I could hear him laughing from the other side of the house. And for years after that, hey, Ben, tell them the story where you grounded yourself for 3 years.
So you mentioned, writing the column with Justin Trudeau, but you actually went to high school with Justin Trudeau.
No, he was 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
Our very first day at the school were his final days. And so I didn't know.
But he invited you to his wedding.
We had overlapping friends in our different friend groups. And one of them introduced us at a bar, and it was when his dad was sick. And so I led with that. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. And I had a lot of fun with him. Spent a lot of time with him because I was in Montreal on weekends when I wasn't at law school in Quebec City. And so I spent a great deal of time with him, got to know him. Eventually, he came to Toronto quite a bit. And I introduced him to Seamus O'Regan because Seamus was my co-host on my first TV show. And that's how he got into his wedding party and to his cabinet.
How'd you think of that draft pick?
Oh, predictable. Seamus is a hard worker. Like I bifurcate between, policy and person. There's plenty of people in the Liberal government, old and new, that I have friendships and relationships with. They are good and decent people. And I was just a difference of opinion on policy. Justin, on the other hand, I don't know if we're still friends. I think that there was an element of bravado and of believing his own press. I don't know, being so blind that he couldn't see he was hurting people with the policies that he was implementing and he was hurting the country. I had to take that personally.
Seeing your dad deal with celebrity and the spotlight versus Trudeau's dad and Trudeau to a certain extent, they seemed to chase it where your dad was much more focused on chasing what was right.
Dad had a saying and he loved it and he repeated it all the time. And every time he told it, he would chuckle as if he'd never heard it before. He'd say, hey, Ben, what's the only thing better than being rich and famous? Just being rich. Fame is the cost of the money. Keep having to feed that beast because otherwise that money will dry up. So there's so many people who chase fame for the sake of fame. It's a prison. I know that because that's what Canadian fame is. I was at the top of my field and I was doing well, but I was by no means, I didn't have that bubble around me that celebrities can pay for in the United States to be able to have that life that was so different. They're on yachts and they're flying here and they've got people and they never go in the front door of places. When you're Canadian famous, you walk in the door like everybody else and you grocery shop like everybody else. And when you're trying to just, spend some time with your kid or chastise your kid because they want one cereal over another, somebody has to come and talk to you. That's a reminder that it's a particular kind of thing.
You decided not to pursue the geology major.
Right.
But what I researched, to me, that was like setting up a career in politics. But you chose entertainment. How did that come about?
It chose me. I was in law school knowing at 100% that I would be possibly one of the worst lawyers. We did a moot court. Client was one of my students, one of my classmates. I thought I had given this stirring Law and Order style defense. They ruled life sentence. And I looked at him, I was like, I did not see that coming. And so, sorry, buddy. And my dad called me and I was still in Quebec City. And he said, hey, Ben, I want you to do me a favor. Now, Dad never asked for favors. So when he did, we did them. The Progressive Conservative Party of Canada is having their policy convention in Quebec City tomorrow or the next day. I can't be there. Nobody else is there. You're there. And nobody's seen a Mulroney in the wild for a few years now. And I think it would be a shot in the arm. I bet you'll get some press and that's good for the party. And so I had my own escalator moment where I came down the escalator at the convention center and all the press were waiting there. The photo. I was on the cover of a couple of newspapers. And then I was interviewed by all the outlets, English and French. And at that same time, here in Toronto, the president of CTV, Suzanne Boyce, she saw it. And this was at the birth of digital cable, where we went from 30 channels to 300 overnight. And all of a sudden, people are scrambling for content and for people to host shows that haven't been invented yet. There were not enough people with television degrees to fill all those roles. So they started looking elsewhere. And they said, well, here's the guy. Here's a guy. People know his name. He's not afraid of the camera. Can speak on a number of topics. So I did that as their webcam correspondent until I was done with school. And then I moved here right before 9/11. From that, they gave me eTalk and I got Canadian Idol. I said, I'll do this until they fire me. And I did it for 18, 19 years.
What did you learn about celebrities? Not sort of when you're putting a camera in front of them, but did you walk away with any, talk about connective tissue, any sort of thing saying, if I had to talk about my experience of celebrities, it would be that? Or is everybody different?
Everybody's different. I interviewed George Clooney once. He was in Toronto for the film festival. And Britney Spears was spiraling. I said, could this have happened to you? He goes, oh God, no, I didn't get famous until my mid-30s. And had I been famous when she was famous, I would have been shooting heroin into my eyeballs. And there is an element of truth to that. There's arrested development does happen. But then I heard from somebody else, another celebrity told me, fame doesn't change you. It only highlights that which is already there. So if you're a nice person, it'll supercharge that. And then if you're an asshole, it'll make you the worst on the block.
How much of that is shaped by the media's bias towards you? In other words, I don't think Clooney could ever do any wrong. He might be the nicest guy in the world. He certainly presented that way. But when Britney Spears started to spiral, it was like everybody took great joy in seeing what was someone from the Mickey Mouse Club and became this incredible star and a teen idol. And then next thing you know, they couldn't wait to put the Spears out.
They love building you up and they love tearing you down. And you can be resurrected, but first you have to show contrition. Apologize in some way so that the people can root for you again. Tiger Woods did it. The only example I've ever seen of someone falling and getting back up without saying they were sorry is the Liberal Party of Canada. That was a change election.
To me, it was the greatest comeback win of all time.
Yeah.
And how is it possible that it seems like the Liberals play chess and the Conservatives play checkers?
I am not as steeped in the inner workings of parties. I haven't been a member of any party since 1993 when I cast my vote for Jean Charest to be the leader of the Progressive Conservatives. So I don't know how parties work and I don't know about their constitutions and all that stuff. But from my perspective on the outside, the Liberal Party of Canada is the purest political beast in the Western Hemisphere. They know how to win and that's really all they know how to do. Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien hated each other and they had legions in that party and they stuck it out because they knew that if they broke apart, they might lose. I don't think the Conservative Party of Canada is built the same way. I don't even think it's a party except in name only. I think it is a confluence of movements and right now they are together. But all it takes is some crisis. It takes one bad decision and one group is going to take their toys and go home. the history of conservatism is the history of the coming together and the breaking apart of various parties. And so because of that, I don't think they're playing 3D chess. I just think they're built differently.
So I want to wind it back to broadcast for a moment before we get into what you're doing now with the Chorus Network. You're at the top of your game. You're certainly delivering the ratings. You're delivering the interviews. When you're at that place and you look back, and we're going to get in the moment where it all changed, was there a celebrity that you interviewed that you said, that was a job well done? I found something out about them that no one else did?
Well, I always liked the long form interviews that I got to do. I had a great time with Tom Cruise. I interviewed him a number of times and they put us in really interesting spots with him. I think Shania Twain was probably one. We went back to Timmins because they had opened the Shania Twain Center. She and I spent the whole day together. And when the cameras were off, I said, look, because she kept saying, I'm going to send my son to the reserve. I lived on a reserve. I'm going to send him to the reserve so he can know how I grew up. Shania, with all due respect, I didn't say performative, but that's what it would have been today. Because he knows that at the end of the day, there's a private jet picking him up and taking him back to Switzerland. You didn't have that. So I don't know what you think he's going to get out of it. It won't be what you got. And what my parents did to us is they told us, in this house, you are the most special kids in the world. You can do no wrong. And when you do something wrong, we're going to help you get back because we believe in you. Outside of this house, most people think that you are not going to accomplish anything in life that you deserve. So you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to be nicer. You're going to have to be more of a positive force than they would expect. I think that turned out to be true. Second generation kids who are the product of success, the generation before, I think they were living in a very cynical time where you see somebody and you have a checklist of all the things that person represents without ever having spent a moment with them. You have one political opinion, that must mean these things about you. And so, listen, it's not a hill I have to climb. And so, woe is me. I'm the living embodiment of white privilege. It is what it is. But there is a larger problem of people not talking to each other. They assume they know everything they need to know about you, so they're not going to talk to you.
Do you think that's part of your higher purpose in the broadcast today, is to unpack that so people see a different side than the sort of biases they've already shaped when that person comes on your show?
Everyone who's come on the show has very much liked it. I haven't had a single Liberal cabinet minister yet. The ratings are fine, right? I think if we got Mark Carney, we might get a bump. But other than that, if they don't want to come, they should be talking to my audience, but that's okay. The ones who've come on, we've had people come on of completely different political background than mine, political perspective. We had one of the founders of BLM came on, and she had a lovely time. She liked us. She wants to come on and be on one of our panels. People think that what we put out on social media, me ranting, is the show, and it's not. There's all sorts of other aspects, and the conversations that we have, I think, are some of the best. I think we go places other people don't, but they're respectful. I wouldn't invite you into my house to then punch you in the face.
In terms of interviews, is there one that got away from you or that you wish you could redo because you realize that maybe you didn't get beneath the surface?
Listen, it was really fun in the beginning. It was fun and it was challenging. We took our jobs very seriously. Those who thought that it was fluff were not scratching below the surface. We were doing something that had never been done in Canada before, which was spoon-feeding Canadian content to Canadians, and they didn't know it. They were every single day in prime time when they could watch anything else. They chose us. We had at one point, at our highest point, we were getting 1 million viewers at 7 p.m. And we were placing Sarah McLachlan's success in the same breath as Beyonce. People thought we were being ridiculous and trying to be American by going to the Junos or the Canadian Country Music Awards and saying, who are you wearing? I don't care who you're wearing. However, one of these people is going to answer a Canadian designer, and they're going to get free press out of it. And so this was all done by design. It was all done. It looked fun and loose on TV. It was because we worked our butts off. The interviews were like that bonus for me that I could, when I'd go to a dinner party, I had interesting stories. After a while, they stopped getting interesting to me.
Your wife, Jessica, literally gets hit over the head with a shovel.
Yeah.
The mood of the time is we're going to attack her. It was a court of public opinion.
Yep.
It was certainly not a court. And you were part of that fallout. She was about to get a Netflix show.
Oh, she had it. It was done. It was in the can. It had just aired on Crave and CTV. And the next week it was going to launch. It was going to drop on Netflix.
And this whole thing unravels. And then what I'm also interested in is how people took advantage to try to pull you down in that as well?
Well, there are some who tried to take advantage of the situation as it was unfolding, and there were those who caused it to unfold. I wake up in the morning and Jess's world is exploding. Open up Instagram. I look for this video. Who are the people in your network that liked it? And you'll see a few names you recognize. And the first name I saw was my co-host, Danielle Graham. Now, I didn't think anything was wrong at this point because I've pressed like on plenty of things I don't care about because I want to help my friend and if they're trying to grow their audience, especially if it's a long video. So I was on my phone, I was doing voice to text, and I was panicked and I was nervous. And I said, Danielle, I don't know why you like that video. Maybe she's a friend of yours. Maybe it's another reason. I don't know. But I know you don't have all the facts. And I have information for you. Please call me back. But you might want to reconsider that like. And she saw the email and she chose to view that as me threatening her. And she went to HR. First, I was told by the head of the network that what I did constituted the equivalent of a parking ticket. And then 2 days later, that parking ticket was turned into nobody wants to work with you at eTalk anymore. And that was a show I built. I was the first host. I was the first producer. I was the voice of the show. When there was nobody else hosting it, I did every interview. There was one year I was away 45 weekends of the year at junkets. I'm not a nostalgic person at all. At my house, if my house burnt down, so long as I had my family, the dog, and my dad's watch, I wouldn't care. I would not shed a tear for anything in that house. I did not shed one tear for that place. Gone. Good riddance. We're done.
But you must have felt abandoned.
No, I didn't. I had my tribe on Your Morning and they were wonderful people. But even that, I really thought that was going to be something different. I thought that was going to scratch the itch that I'd had for years, and it kind of didn't. And then I decided at a certain point it was time to leave. Yeah, I hit a road bump. I was introduced to a guy who was starting a fintech. And it was going to be an online bank. Now, this was 5 years ago now. This has all been done now. But 5 years ago, this didn't exist. It was going to be a fintech that was going to allow entrepreneurs and small business owners to open a corporate account instantly. And my job was going to be chief impact officer of this company. I was going to go around to all the different cultural communities in the country. I was going to talk to Black North and all these Aboriginal groups, find out what kind of business organizations they have, go talk to them, have roundtables, find out what works at your bank, what doesn't work. What works, we're going to copy, and what doesn't, we're going to toss away. But then over the course of 9 months, the entire thing fell apart because we found out the CEO was a bad dude, very bad dude. That's a story for another day. But I learned in that moment that I do not have what it takes to be a pure play entrepreneur. I don't believe in myself enough to say I'm banking on myself on this idea.
You decide to go into entrepreneurship. You said there was a failed experience. But what I really thought changed a lot was when your dad passed away. And you even said in an article afterwards that my voice seemed to change that day.
Well, I don't remember saying it, but it sounds eloquent. So let's go with that.
No, it was in a podcast you did from a Montreal podcaster. And you said that I remember as if my voice changed and I had a voice.
All credit, if there is credit to give, it goes to this gentleman right here, Mike Ben Dixon. He called me up one day and said, hey, I think you'd be good on radio. And I said, all right, sure. I wasn't doing anything on weekends, and that was the job that I was doing. I was doing Saturdays and Sundays. It prevented me from going a little too crazy on Friday nights, which was good. And my first day on radio was October 7th, 2023. And the bill of goods this guy sold me was, hey, it's so easy, Ben. You just tell people at the farmers markets and the festivals. And meanwhile, I'm hearing the news breaks about this massacre that's going on. I was like, okay, I guess got to get back to the farmers markets. And he comes in after the first half hour or something, says, why aren't you talking about Israel? I was like, I didn't know I could, and I don't know how to. And so he taught me. He sat there with me, and gave me a crash course on radio on how to deal with breaking news. And I felt sort of linked to that moment. I don't know if it made me more serious, but something changed in me.
And you've been accused at times of saying you're not a journalist. You're really just a spokesperson for the Conservative Party. And you've pushed back and said, no, I'm not a journalist. I have an opinion, and my opinion matters. So tell me how you deal with the critics that really want to put you in front of a teleprompter and read words versus the people like Mike Ben Dixon, of course, that says, no, your opinion is something that people want to hear.
I subscribe to the Ron Popeil method of tweeting, set it and forget it. I don't care. The only people I care about, their opinions, are my closest friends, my family, and my bosses. That's it. If I can make them happy, it does none of the critics. That's their job.
You're building a brand in Canada that I would say is a Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, very different personalities, but you're actually getting out there where people are looking forward to your podcast. They're looking forward to your content. Do you think that you have an ability to take what was conventional radio and many people were kind of putting out to the pasture and realizing it's not radio, it's just one of the many channels to put good content out, and it should have no dead ends?
It's a radio show first, which then gets sort of reverse engineered into a podcast. And then we take little bits and pieces of that and turn it into social media content. And I have no idea how things get on YouTube, but they get there. More people will tell me that I love your podcast. I love just listening to your podcast. And I get stopped in cities where we don't have a station. If you're a conservative in Saskatchewan, apparently you listen to the Ben Mulroney show. It's a vital tool for us to grow.
So how does your siblings feel about, from day one, you choosing that sort of path? I mean, obviously your sister chose politics. Nicholas is an entrepreneur, obviously. How do they feel about what you're doing? Are they something they're very proud of, or sometimes they go, that's cringeworthy?
Look, I got to do something that other people in TV didn't get to do. I hosted the big shows.
Yeah.
I hosted the shows that were all number one. Every one of them. Every show I did was number one. But I guess that was just a fluke. Then it got rinse and repeat, and it was just like, and the numbers were going down, and the network didn't seem to have an answer for it. And so we're just, how long are we going to do this for? It just wasn't fun anymore, and I wasn't doing anything new. Everything I could do in television at that point, I had done. The only reason I'm back in television now is because they offered me something I hadn't done before, telling people about the political scene.
When we return, my conversation with Ben Mulroney goes beyond the broadcast into the small business community across Canada. What's his new muse these days? And of course, my 3 takeaways.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. Ideas matter. Ideas are the oxygen of human endeavor. They breathe life into how we work, live, and play. Ideas let us create and innovate and overcome complex and often challenging circumstances. Big or small, revolutionary or evolutionary, almost every positive step forward begins with a good idea. So bring your ideas to RBC because they matter, and they'll bring theirs because you matter. Ideas happen at RBC.
If you're in conflict for even 1 second, you're in conflict, and you owe people an explanation. And the explanation that's been given, sadly, is not enough. Chrystia Freeland has built a wonderful and proud reputation as a staunch defender of Ukraine, which is, her family comes from there. However, unfortunately, because of what she's done now, because of the choices that she's made, she's opened the door to asking questions about her motivation. I went to law school, didn't learn a lot in law school. Learned a lot, didn't remember a lot. But one of the things I remember, as I said before the break, the appearance of propriety is as important as propriety itself. If people don't trust that the system is above board, then it doesn't matter if you get to the right conclusion. They will not believe that the process that you followed was right. And this sort of shenanigans and a cavalier playing around with the rules, one rule for thee, one rule for me, doesn't sit right with people, and it makes them doubt the system.
Today, my special guest is Ben Mulroney, who speaks his mind with confidence, clarity, conviction, and courage.
Talk to me about what you're doing with small business in Canada. I know you're getting very involved, both as a mentor and at the same time, some of them are even bringing you into the fold because they think that you can bring extraordinary value.
When I got asked to join this startup, one of the reasons I did was it resonated with me from what my dad said. For every time we talked about small businesses are the engine of the economy. CFIB just put out a study that said 52% of our non-governmental GDP in this country is small, medium-sized businesses. And then the scariest thing is 75% of those people, when polled, said they would not recommend to a family member to start a small business in Canada right now. So they have headwinds, terrible headwinds. And these are the people who build neighborhoods. If you don't have the mom and pop shops, then you have a residential neighborhood where everyone just stays in their house. Like you don't build social cohesion. You don't build identity. People who bet on themselves, who say, I have an idea. Nobody else is doing it. I've identified a problem and I am the solution. They believe in it so much they take their parents' money. And then I saw the LCBO workers try to get job security on the backs of small businesses who don't have that. And that made me very, very mad. And then I see what's happening with Canada Post. I work with Mike at one of the biggest media companies in the country, and they're broke. Every day we show up and we make it work. These guys are so out to lunch. You've got the management saying, here's all the money in the world we can offer you. And then the workers come back and say, that's an insult. We're not even speaking the same language. That's a broken system. That's a broken company.
So how do we fix that?
Canada Post?
Well, I mean, we could do Canada Post as an example, but let's say you had your hand on the rudder. As a journalist and somebody with opinion, you could argue you're an armchair quarterback. I'm now giving you the game ball. What do we need to do in this country to get it back to where it was 10 years ago?
We've got to lower taxes on businesses severely, significantly. Stop collecting the GST before they've made any money. I don't even get that. Okay, we estimate that if your sales are X, you're going to owe us Y. So give us that now. Well, what if I need to use that money for, I don't know, hire somebody or build something or take a trip to go sign a new contract? No, give us the money now. I am not hopeful that that's going to happen under this government, because I've been learning about Mark Carney in real time, as a lot of us have. What kind of prime minister is he going to be? And this budget told me a lot. This budget told me that the Liberal government believes that it is central to solving every problem. Even if it's a problem they caused, they are going to solve it. I don't see them coming in to fix that. The idea that all entrepreneurs need is to be left alone I think it's a foreign concept to them.
You see less government, less taxes, and more supporting.
I'm not suggesting we don't make sure we have enough money to pay for the robust social safety net that everybody wants. But look, in healthcare, for example, I've said it on my show many times. Never in the history of this country have we put more money into the system, and never in the history of this country have the outcomes been so poor. So don't tell me it's a money problem. It's not a money problem.
But you could argue that with our education. You could argue that across.
Not necessarily. Education's got a lot of issues. There's social issues. There are new Canadian issues. There's all sorts of stuff. There's politics that come into it. And then over the past 10 years, there was all of a sudden we woke up one day and it's as if a certain type of activist had been working through the night, working with their friends in the tie-dye t-shirts, coming up with explanations as to why the world that we were living in was wrong. And we just woke up one day. It's like, it's science, guys. It's science. Get with the program. And I was like, but we didn't have a conversation about this. So that's a big problem too, because time is binary. For every second that you're spending on land acknowledgements, that's a second you're not spending on math.
Or curiosity, or things that we need to teach the kids for the future.
Yeah. And also, we're creating an environment where you can be curious, but not about stuff that we disagree with, because then you're going to be a problem that needs to be overcome.
A young person starting out with their footsteps. As we close off this interview, what advice can you give a young Canadian to still feel there's positivity and possibility? Because so many young people I talk to are feeling like they're on their back feet. They feel like they're running in cement.
It's always darkest before the dawn. I say get involved politically. I say it about the municipal election that for years, so many of us were just content to sit on the couch and whatever the result tomorrow, it's all going to be the same. Doesn't matter who gets elected. It does matter who gets elected. And it feels like people are activated and they're angry. They feel that they've been lied to. They feel like they've been taken advantage of. They're being told, you got to give us more money, but you're getting nothing in return. So I think those people who would normally stay on the couch are going to get up. That's my hope. And I would say the same thing to young people who say, oh, I don't care about politics. You should care about politics. You care deeply. And I would never tell anybody who to vote for. That's the wonderful alchemy of our system. We get the government we deserve. And it's never wrong. But it could be more right. It could be more right if people ask questions. When someone comes to your door, all right, where do you stand on these 5 things? These are the 5 things that are important to me. Where do you stand? Okay, now I'm going to find out from the other guy and make a decision that way.
Within the system, though, there's so many people that say it doesn't matter. They're all corrupt, or the existential crisis. I've learned through my time in school that the planet's going to melt up or AI is going to take away our job. Your voice, as strong as it is on the radio right now, talking to people about the world as it exists today. How do we get voices like yours telling the youth that you can change things and we can right the ship and we can there's only 40 million people in this country, the second largest landmass. who share a border with the greatest economy in the world. Yeah. Like, how do you get young people sort of saying, I'm going to put up my spears and my pitchforks and I'm going to demand change?
All politics are local. So I would start local. Take care of your little fiefdom of your neighborhood and grow from there. Figure out what you like about politics. Figure out what aspects of it. Some people just find out that they're organizers. Some are politicians. Some are front-facing. Some want to be in the back room. Some want to work on policy. And you'll find that out if you volunteer and you do that kind of work. And how can they be more hopeful? People are cynical, that's for sure. But I soundly reject the idea that everybody's the same. It doesn't matter who you vote for. I had a front row seat to watching somebody work his ass off. He absolutely mattered. And he said, when he resigned at 13% in the polls, he said, political capital is meant to be spent. And if you leave after 4 years or 8 years on a job to a ticker tape parade, you didn't do everything you could. And so he never cared about being popular, ever. He knew he wasn't popular. He knew he was. Of course he did. He got booed at the opening game of the Sky Dome, and when George Bush was there with him, and he's given his press conference afterwards, and they said, Mr. Prime Minister, what'd you think of those boos? And he said, I think that was reprehensible. Goddamn disgrace. So I'm swearing a lot, but I'm channeling him. The Canadians would come and boo the President of the United States.
So my final question to you is, would you ever consider politics?
I don't want to run provincially. I don't want to run federally, but I love municipal politics. I love it. And I've met some of the people who at city council. I could do that. Look, I don't know how it's going to shake out. John Tory may or may not run. And if he doesn't, let's live in a world where he doesn't run for a second. Brad Bradford 2 years ago polled at 1%. He got 1% of the vote. Depending on the polls that you look at now, he's anywhere between 25 and 41%. He did that in 2 years. And more than that, he's become the de facto leader of the opposition. When Olivia says something, the press goes to Brad. Oh, yeah. Brad, what do you think? And he still has a year. So imagine when he's fully mobilized in a campaign, what he can do. So I'm quite hopeful on him. He's also the only person between him and Olivia and John Tory. So he's got young kids. So he can speak a language that the other two can't. He's a cyclist, and he's a city planner. And he also thinks there's a war on cars. Only a cyclist can say that that's a boneheaded bike lane. I'm hopeful that with everything that we've talked about tonight, with the activation of everyday regular Torontonians who would never, ever wait in line to vote for a municipal election, with him as a candidate, there's a strong chance he wins. And he's also 38, I think, and he's going to need 30 years in the chair to fix his city. So but I'm hopeful he wins. But the NDP are a wily bunch. Everyone gives flack to Donald Trump for Project 2025, which did not happen. But we've been living the NDP version of that for decades, and nobody really kind of noticed. They knew they weren't going to win federally, and they certainly haven't won provincially all but once. So they're like, all right, well, then we're going to take over the cities, and we're going to do it by taking over city staff. We're going to be everywhere. We're going to be everywhere. And so that's what they did. And so it's going to take a long time to fix that. So if he wins, then we're in great shape. If he doesn't win, well, we'll see how the show's doing at that point. But if I may take a sabbatical and run municipally.
I always end my show with my 3 takeaways. And the first one is the fact that I'm glad your dad's in your rearview mirror, because I think he's got to be very proud that you've become such a voice, and a pragmatic voice and a voice of reason versus just a rapper. And I think your mom's just as proud. And what I know of your mom, she'd probably be in the front seat telling you to drive better. The second thing is I'm on your radio show, and I've really seen such incredible growth, even in the past 6 months, of just how comfortable you are. And it's almost like you get up for a game day. You remind me, I just watched the Tom Brady special. I love Journeys. And you remind me somewhat of how focused you are. And when I look at your eyes sometimes and you're thinking something, or we're off camera, you're debating something, this isn't script. This isn't snackable content you hope people like. This is you coming out. And I think that authenticity is something we're missing in media. Everybody's looking for their 10 megs of fame. And I think what you're looking for is to change the narrative. And I appreciate that about you. And the third thing is just how you probably said it best. No matter who you are, even if you get famous, you can become a better person of yourself or a worse person. And I think we're very lucky to have a very good person sitting with us tonight, and somebody that's just wasn't afraid to answer any questions. So I appreciate you joining us at the Toronto Hunt and being part of it. Thank you.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.